Yo, what's up, faithful? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our content. This is the Phantom. So, today we're going to talk about a topic that I think the national media really has beaten the dead horse, so to speak, a lot. And that is the subject of Mr. Brock Purdy, number 13, San Francisco 49ers quarterback. And I'm probably here to say that this is one of those subjects that I would probably say takes a lot of media attention, right? Because it's a hot button, it's a hot topic. A lot of media people have their own opinions about Brock Purdy. I'm really going to take the approach of, here's what I've seen, right, from Brock. This season, it's sort of been a mixed bag, right? The issue with this season, though, is that we haven't really seen Brock for many, many games, right? He's only played a combined game in Seattle against the Seahawks, right? Game against the Jaguars, game against the Cardinals, and then game against this final team, the Panthers. So when we take those 4 games, interceptions to passing touchdowns, for sure there's a little bit of room left to be desired, right? But I think what makes Brock Purdy special is that he is ultimately able to run an efficient system. And I think sometimes we don't always take that into consideration. And when I say we, I don't mean us, Niners fans, although there are some fans, right, who think that way. I mean the media, right? Because they only see the highlights. And they're waiting at every twist and every turn to legitimately tear, Brock Purdy apart, right? They're waiting to see a first-round draft pick like Mac Jones do well and then crown him back as, man, this guy's a starter. And, again, I have no doubt that Mac Jones is probably a starter in a team, right, for a team and in their offense. But we look at those throws on Monday night, and you realize that a good amount of those reads were there and were available. And were there some bad throws? Yes, there were, right? They weren't quite on the money. And does Brock Purdy tend to throw a more catchable ball? Yes, he does, right? That's also what helps him get his balls to his receivers where they're catchable and helps with completion percentages, right? Because they're not like rockets going through bodies, which can also make some balls uncatchable for receivers, right? But at the same time, that third interception, it was a great play by the defender, right? And so those are small things that you really have to take into context and consideration. I think the biggest thing that I applaud Brock Purdy for, though, is that, yes, we've seen similar games like this. We talk about the year they went to the Super Bowl where he threw 4 picks against the Ravens. We can talk about that for sure. And then he went on to still have a really successful season. But I would almost argue that in that game, from beginning till end, everything was kind of shaky. What I think I really appreciated about Brock this game was that, yes, he threw interceptions. But what you notice is he threw 3 in the first half. And then in the second half, he came out and he took care of the football. He corrected course. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I can say is an improvement in Brock Purdy's game is that prior, okay, he would kind of throw interceptions all throughout the situation, but the gunslinger in him was still throwing balls, and it was like, you got to be composed, you got to play quarterback, and you can't win the points back, right? You can't make up for what you already threw away. You can only take on what you have currently now. And I think we saw that second half, it was a lot more composed. It was better quarterbacking play. You could tell he was being a little bit more conservative, but not so conservative that it was taking everything away from his game. He was being conservative enough that it was allowing him to still make the throws he needed to make, but manage the game within his own system and what needed to be done for that Monday night game. So, with that being said, how do I feel about Brock moving forward? I still feel like he is going to be the best shot we have in the playoffs when things get tight and when plays need to be made. I still feel like there is going to be still some learning and some growing pains this year because, again, he's only played 4 games this year. And so there's still going to be a little bit of the need to build more chemistry and get guys in the right position and work through a lot of the things that have been happening and wondering and get guys going, so to speak, right? Again, that first drive was a really nice drive that Brock Purdy completed. And outside of those 3 interceptions, Brock Purdy still had a decent game, right? If I had to rate him, I would say he had probably a C-plus game. Because again, on the other side of the ball, right, and this is, coming from the guy where, the other quarterback, right, for the Panthers, if you think about it, he also threw 2 interceptions, right? But we won and that other team lost. And yes, we can say the team itself performed well, but you still had to have that composure. With that being said, I still believe that Kyle has a lot of trust in Brock, and now it's just Brock again. Just continue to maintain the pace. And yes, we want you to make those throws, but we also still want you to be smart with the football. And I think he's got the capability to do it. I think there's still the capability to get in there and do a good job. So ultimately, I still trust Brock Purdy to come through, make the throws he needs to make, come out on top. I haven't lost faith in him. It's just I understand that we can look at every game, and this season especially, and it's like there's a little bit higher of the turnover rate, but it's understanding to be patient and to still continue to have trust, right? All right, with that being said, let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think about the situation. Really, I wanted to stick to just talking about Brock for the most part this video. And if you guys have any comments yourself or anything that you think of, whether you agree or disagree, right? This is just how I feel, my opinion. But if you feel differently, that's okay too. All right. With that being said, go Niners. Phantom out.